Chris Hall here on Dogs on Demand on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all those other places that you'll find us. And it's good to have Jeremy O'Neill Johnson with us. Jeremy works for Dawgs HQ on 3sports.com. And Jeremy joins us on our program. We're going to talk a little bit about college football, specifically honing in on the University of Georgia. Jeremy, welcome to our program today. It's a great joy to have you with us.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Georgia. Now, I look over the recruiting rankings for 2024 from On 3 Sports, and you guys have Georgia with the number one ranked team in the 2024 class, followed by Ohio State, Florida, Alabama, Florida State, Tennessee, Clemson, Michigan, Penn State, and USC rounding out the top 10. Give me your impressions about this recruiting class that's coming into Athens. It seems as if it's going to be another stellar recruiting class for the University of Georgia, just more of the same as Kirby and the staff load up again. Just specifically honing in on this 2024 recruiting class, give me your impressions of what's coming to Athens in this next recruiting class.
I feel like we say this every year, but this is a special group. Yeah. Stellar definitely sums them up. I would definitely think, there's a lot to this group just off the field. I think they are very high quality people, also, and they really seem to get along, which is, you would think that happens in every class, but that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I feel like these guys will be a good football team together just because they like each other. There's a lot of talent. I think they got two quarterbacks that are really good. Both of those guys are really good options. Both of them can do a lot of really good things with the football. Very different personality-wise. This is another one of those foundational classes for Georgia for sure.
I was reading an article, and I forget who exactly wrote it, but I was reading an article, and it may have been Rusty. It may even have been you. I don't know. I read a lot of articles about Georgia. But the gist is, Kirby Smart's best football team may yet to be on the field yet with this recruiting class. This year's, class that will be on the field with those who are returning for the University of Georgia. And for the coming year's recruiting classes, as good as Georgia's been, obviously with back-to-back national championships, you got to say Georgia's been pretty good here lately. Is it possible that the best team that Kirby Smart will have at the University of Georgia may yet be in the future? Is that possible?
It's definitely possible. You just never know how recruits are going to turn out. Situations may occur once you get on campus and guys, things happen. And we've seen it in the past where recruits come in as 5-stars and, they're off campus by the end of their freshman year.
Yeah.
And then you have a 3-star walk-on. You got a walk-on quarterback that comes in and leads you to 2 national championships. There's going to be somebody. It's an inexact science for sure. But I do think I'm not going to say better. I'm going to say different. This team will where they're going will look different than what we've seen. Just by mentioning 2 quarterbacks. You just kind of look at the receiving core and the types of receivers they're bringing in and the way they've valued the big men up front on the offensive line, which is it's similar to what they've had, but also these guys are very athletic, so they're going to be really good at pass protecting. And I think you're starting to see some morphosis on what they're looking for as the edge guys, the big 6'6", long arm edge guys to rush the pass. I think that's something that is starting to come into vogue with Georgia's defense. We've seen Nolan Smith the last few years at 6'1" or 6'2" kind of be the prototype for what they do on defense as an edge. And I think that's going to look different. So better, maybe in theory they should be, but I think different is more of what we will see. It'll be a different looking team in the next couple of years.
Yeah. As long as different's better or good, we'll go with that. You mentioned Raiola and Puglisi, the quarterbacks coming in, Dylan Raiola at Buford, Georgia now, which is, I'm from the old school. Back in the day, there were rumors that some schools were recruiting. Now I'm sure Buford maybe have got a call one day from the Raiola family and said, hey, we'd like to come and, play football there. He being from Arizona, he's in Georgia now. Give me your. I know you've had eyeballs on Dylan Raiola. You've watched him. You've watched his skill set. Give me your impressions on Dylan and what Georgia is getting in this obviously elite quarterback.
He has a lot of potential. He's got special arm talent, and people use that and say that a lot. And what exactly is that? You just watch him throw the deep ball, and it just does things in the air that you just don't expect the football to do, and it just gets another gear, and it's just like, man, this is different. And he can do the Patrick Mahomes no look passes, and he can do the just flick his wrist and sling it through the defense. He can do that. So, I don't know if Georgia's had a guy like that in a long time. It's just at that position that can freelance and do things down the field that Raiola can do. That's the best way I can describe him. He's still young in his development. I believe he began playing football a little later in life, but he's got a lot of the tools that you look for when you start trying to build a quarterback that goes high in the NFL draft, for sure.
And you mentioned Raiola, and I've heard the comparisons with Mahomes rather. You mentioned Mahomes, and I've mentioned the comparisons heard about the comparisons between Raiola and Patrick Mahomes. You think that's legitimate? You think that's I know he's at that level, and that's a lot to put on the kid, but you think that's legitimate for a comparison between Raiola and Mahomes?
Just walking off the bus, they kind of look alike. If you want to know the truth about it, they look very similar as far as the way they look. But I don't like to do the comparison thing because Patrick Mahomes is so special. That there's one of those. And I think it's like we lucked into finding that one. So, there are some similarities, but I also think that some of the stuff that Raiola does is because it's the way quarterbacks train nowadays. Like Patrick Mahomes is like Steph Curry, what Steph Curry was for basketball, where the 3-point game has, become just regular. Everybody's shooting 3-pointers now. I think some of the stuff that Patrick Mahomes does on the football field, quarterbacks actually go out and train and do that stuff. Like I was saying, the no look, the underarm, the multiple slots, that's something these guys incorporate into their practice habits. And I think you see them getting better at it and being able to do it like it's normal now. Raiola does it, but then you got a 9th grader or rising 10th grader down at Carrollton, Julian Lewis.
Yeah.
He does a lot of the same things that I'm describing with Raiola. So, I don't think there's a comparison. I do think there are some, traits that, that he's picked up because Mahomes has been so good, over time.
And he's on TV and he's doing it, and these guys see it and they say, hey, that is so cool, and it's celebrated, of course. Hey, and the other quarterback for Georgia, Ryan Puglisi, there's nothing short about him either. He's been described to me as a stud at quarterback. What is your impressions of Puglisi?
I was very impressed with him. I got a chance to meet him at the Elite 11, as I did Raiola. I've met him on a couple occasions, and just speaking to him, he's a very well put together manners-wise. I really feel like guys gravitate towards him. He's got a big, powerful arm that when he learns how to, not necessarily throw 95 miles per hour every time, he's going to be, somebody that we look at like that's going to have a big time opportunity at Georgia at some point. He can move around. He's one of those hard-nosed football players that, I think Kirby Smart really, really values. So, I think he's a very impressive player as well. Georgia, there are the options are, if you found 2 guys better than, like to mold into a quarterback room, like that's going to be hard to top when you look at a quarterback room top to bottom with those 2 just alone. And you got Gunnar Stockton and Brock Vandegrift and Carson Beck, who'll be their teammates next year. So
it looks pretty good in Athens in the quarterback room, to be honest with you. But, for me, the thing that really makes Georgia stand out, and it was such on display against TCU in the national championship game, is on the offensive and defensive line. Georgia just is so stacked, and it's like a wall. It literally is like a wall, and other teams have a hard time matching up with that. I know our good friend Rusty Manziel spoke about how TCU just, they couldn't match up to Georgia physically in the trenches on the offensive line, defensive line, and also in the, on the defensive backfield as well, linebacker position. And Georgia's stacking up again. I mean, I look at the size of these kids that are coming in this recruiting class. I'm just astounded, 6'5", whatever, and 6'6", whatever, and they can run so fast. It really is amazing, the athletic ability, even on the offensive and defensive line for these kids coming into college these days, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, it is definitely just me. Anytime I go and see some of these guys, I'm like, holy cow! Like
what is their mama feeding them?
What are you doing in life to be this big, this young? I mean,
yeah, I know.
I mean, it's amazing, and I do think it's an emphasis for a reason, because for one, it works. It works because no matter how much we try to slice football into this basketball on turf theory, usually the bigger, stronger guys eventually win over 60 minutes. And Georgia continues to stack those guys up and make sure that they have the biggest, they have the strongest, and they have the most athletic. And, it's not just that these guys are big either. I mean, we just talked about two quarterbacks. I mean, Georgia's going to throw the football around a little more than they have, I think, over the next couple of years, just because you're going to have these quarterbacks and these receivers that you're trying to impress, because that's what we're told you have to be able to go win the national championship games. But when you get a lead, you can do what you did against Tennessee and turn around and hand the football off and kill clock and just eat up fourth quarters when you want to, because you got 6'8", 6'6", 6'5", 6'4", 6'8". across the board, and that's where games are won, even today. Is no matter how we try to change that.
Yeah, and they just wear them down on the offensive line. You wear down the defense, and vice versa on the defensive line. Just kind of sticking with the quarterback situation for Georgia a little bit. Carson Beck, Brock Vandegrift, Gunnar Stockton already in the quarterback room, and it appears as if Carson Beck, from what we hear, is going to be the starter for the University of Georgia. And, I think about the quarterback position with Stetson Bennett. Stetson just had that, I don't know, that intangible, that chip on his shoulder, that intangible level of leadership that he put on display. I mean, the thing with Tennessee when he did the phone thing, to the fans, and there was just that something, I guess, in the peripheral with Stetson Bennett that made him such a wonderful leader. He had the physical ability to be the quarterback. And I'm wondering, when you put a Carson Beck out there, man, he's a great quarterback. He's got all the tools to be a fantastic quarterback in college. You kind of wonder, does he have the intangibles on the fringes that made Carson Beck such a great quarterback? What is your impression of Carson Beck? And I have no doubt of his physical ability and his leadership ability. But I'm anxious to see it on the field. What about you?
I'm also anxious to see what happens, because, the quarterback room there's a little bit of a weird dynamic, as it's different than any other position group on the field, because, Stetson was a great leader for so long at Georgia. I mean, where was Carson's place to speak and say and do and be the guy, the rah-rah guy that says this before the huddle? He'll get that opportunity this year, but to me, there's been a little bit of, hey, we like this guy because of, I want to say it was 2 years ago where the receivers had Carson, not Stetson, not anybody else, not JT Daniels. It was Carson Beck that was throwing for them at Pro Day. Yeah. To me, that's a huge stamp saying that, hey, not only do we like this guy, but we have enough chemistry with this guy that we trust him to throw us the football in the biggest job interview of our lives, its football career anyway. But to me, that was one of those check mark moments that, okay, well, at least the guys like him. Now that he has the position and that he'll be out there in the field, he'll be in the huddle a little more often, I kind of wonder how his personality will manifest as a leader. I do think he will have some of that. He may lead a little different than Stetson. I don't know if he's as, confident and, like you said, there's that thing that you just can't really explain with Stetson. But, I believe there is a little bit of that in Carson Beck. I know the other two have it as well. Gunnar Stockton and Brock Vandegrift are both, I've watched them run through tackles and, chirp at the defense, both of them at the high school level. So I'm sure Carson has a little bit of that. I think he will be a different guy than Stetson, but also I think the team will quickly take on his personality just because I think guys like him. So that's half the battle right there.
Yeah, and I think you like that in your quarterback, to have that kind of swagger and confidence, and maybe even a bit of arrogance that Stetson developed over the season, and especially that he put on display after they won. Georgia won the national championship, and by the way, Stetson's showing out apparently at Rams camp. The coach is very pleased with him, and I think the good thing for Carson Beck is the fact that, you don't take any opponent, I guess, for granted, but Georgia starts with UT Martin at night, and then Ball State. Then you get into the taller weeds with the South Carolina, the third week, and then you have UAB before you get into Auburn and Kentucky. So, Georgia, I think will have the advantage of getting Carson, maybe, I don't want to disparage anyone, but maybe the lesser the lesser teams, UT Martin and Ball State, you would expect Georgia to take care of business and get Carson's feet wet a little quicker, right?
Yeah, there definitely will be an opportunity for him to kind of sit in a chair and, kind of get his bearings a little bit and, kind of feel out where the seat needs to be adjusted.
Yeah.
And, and kind of move the steering wheel a little bit. I think that's kind of what these first two games will be. But I also kind of want to see how much we'll see those other two guys too. Yeah. Because, they haven't named a starter. They haven't come out and said that. And we've seen in the past, I mean, DeJuan Mathis won the job out of camp. And halfway through the season, they turned to Stetson Bennett, the third guy. They skipped over Carson, who had beaten him out in the fall camp to go and play. And he never really, well, I guess JT Daniels took over. But, that was kind of the beginning of, the Stetson Bennett guy is pretty good. So, I think Carson will get his chance to get comfortable, but I think also we will see those other two guys maybe, just to kind of see what they can do in games as well, because that's the one question we don't have answered is what these guys can do, like with the real lights on. We've seen them in G-Day, but that's not a real game,
And, there's nothing short with Brock Vandegrift and Gunnar Stockton. No. I mean, those guys are extremely talented as well and deserve to be, playing college football. And Gunnar Stockton just has the name. I mean, the quarterback name, Gunnar. I mean, for heaven's sake. So it'll be interesting. Of course, this will be the last year for divisions in the SEC, and then things just all kind of change with the SEC going away from the divisions. But Georgia still in the SEC Eastern Division. Who do you think's the biggest threat to Georgia in their division this year?
Ooh. The biggest threat in division. Part of me wants to just say Tennessee.
Yeah.
Because Tennessee will, for one, they had that big matchup last year where, Georgia in the rain and big game day atmosphere, and Georgia kind of ran away a little bit. This year, Georgia has to go there. I think that will be an opportunity for Tennessee to kind of get their get back if they're going to get it. They got a big-time quarterback in Joe Milton with a lot of ability that, runs an offense that really suits his skill set. And for some reason he doesn't do it well. They got another young guy, Nico, that's really talented and really special that will be a problem in the next couple of years. So, I would say Tennessee. That's the short answer. I think Kentucky will be interesting. I think Kentucky will be a team that, with Devin Leary at quarterback, obviously they bring a lot of physical stuff up front on both sides of the football. So that's going to be a team that, every year we hear Kirby Smart say it's going to be a physical football game. And because he respects what, Coach Stoops and them, they do over there at Kentucky because they know how they're built and what they're built of. And I think that's going to be a team that, sneaks around. They may be second or third or, have a shot to win that thing late in the year. So.
Yeah, and, South Carolina with Spencer Rattler and some of the talent that they've accumulated. Hey, it's not going to be a cakewalk. People talk about Georgia's easy schedule. Yeah, it's easy till you play these teams, and you get on the field with these teams. And so it's going to, for me, it's always a challenge. And I was telling you before we started our program, I'm from the Larry Munson School of Pessimism. I think Georgia, we got to play this team, be it Vanderbilt or, UT Martin or whatever it may be. I'm always saying, Georgia's going to struggle in this. But hopefully, is it possible? Is it possible for a third straight undefeated season in the regular season. I mean, it's been over 1,000 days since Georgia has lost a game during the regular season. And if they run the table, it'll be like 1,000 and 500, 1,500 days or something like that. I was looking at it. What do you think? I mean, this is such rarefied air. You're back-to-back national champions, and you're going to be favored to win a third straight one. What do you make of these days at the University of Georgia? For somebody like me who's followed Georgia for so many years, I don't know what to think about this. These are the good old days, don't you think?
Yeah, that was going to be my point. You kind of, I don't think anyone has been able to kind of wrap their head around exactly what's happening right now, because I think we're going to look back in 10 years and it's going to be so historic and it's going to be so hard to replicate because of, first of all, where college football is going, just with the schedule and all the conference alignment and everything. But it's wild. That's the best way I can describe it. I mean, I've lived in Athens and been around this around Georgia for a long time, and if you had told me this 10 years ago, I'd have been like, what? How? How did that happen? Like, how did that get there that quickly? But here we are, and I think the best way to do it right now is to kind of just sit back and just take in what's happening, because putting context with it is just not going to – you're never going to do it justice in the moment because it's not over yet.
Yeah, I like it myself. I like it. Being able to rag on some of the Auburn guys and Florida guys, and and to hear them trying to respond. Listen, let me do this with you right quick. Just quickly, I got a series of which is more likelies. So let me just throw this out here. Which is more likely? UGA wins a third national championship in a row, or a Big Ten team breaks through for a national championship? Which one of those do you think is more likely to happen this season?
This season, I'm going to say the third national title for Georgia.
Okay.
Because, Ohio State's breaking in a new quarterback.
Right.
I would say they're a big threat just because of the receiving core they have and the defensive line that they have. And, they can go out on any Saturday and compete with anyone. Michigan's in the same position. They have a very experienced quarterback, so that gives them a shot in any ball game. I just don't know if you throw them on the field with Georgia, what happens right now, just because of the level of play in the trenches that Georgia has coming back. I think people write Georgia off a little bit because of Jalen Carter going to the NFL, but Nazir Stackhouse and all those guys. Jordan Hall's a freshman that's gonna come in and he's dynamite. So there's a lot of good football players that play on those lines of scrimmages at Georgia. So that's where I'm at right now with that.
And Penn State could be poised to have kind of that season that they've been looking for in a long time. Well, which is more likely, Alabama wins the SEC West, or LSU, or Texas A&M does?
I'm gonna go with. Oh man,
I know. And Arkansas is no slouch over there. I don't know if they can win it. So,
I'm gonna go with Alabama winning the West, or is more likely.
Yeah, and their quarterback situation, Alabama's quarterback situation is kind of up in the air at the moment. It'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. Which is more likely, Texas or Oklahoma winning the Big 12 championship in their final season in that league? Which is more likely? You think Texas or Oklahoma? TCU won it. TCU actually did win it last year. They came in second, losing to Oklahoma State. So what do you think? Which is more likely? Will Texas or Oklahoma win the Big 12 championship as they say goodbye and hello to the SEC?
I would say Texas is more likely. Just their quarterback room is one of the best in the country. Obviously, Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning. You got Malik Murphy. That's a trio right there that a lot of teams would love to have. So I think that's going to give them the shot. Coach Sarkisian over there has really got that program going in the right direction.
Yeah, Texas or Alabama in that game when they play this season.
That's gonna be
fun, isn't it?
It's gonna be a fun game. And I think Texas is gonna feel like they their old one just because of how things went last year.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be interesting. And finally, you always have hype around certain teams entering into, a football season. Teams that, showed promise last year, will they be able to do what, get over the hump for this year? For instance, Florida State. A lot of people are on the bandwagon with Florida State, LSU. There's a lot of hype going around with Oregon and Washington. Notre Dame, people are saying don't sleep on Notre Dame. Penn State, that we've already talked about, Texas. Which one of those teams you think will be more likely to advance to the next level for this coming season? What do you think?
Cool. I'm going to go with, out of that group you named, I'm going to say Oregon, because Oregon has a 5th or 6th year quarterback. Oregon's also in year 2 of Dan Lanning, who is great, underneath Kirby Smart over here at Georgia for a while. I think that program's going in the right direction. They got a tough schedule. That Pac-12 is going to be a little bit of murder. This is going to be a tough stretch for them, to say the least.
And is the Pac-12 going to survive? I mean, you got. There's a lot of speculation. What's going to happen to the Pac-12 with Arizona possibly leaving and going to the Big 12? That's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be crazy because it's going to be fun to watch this year, and then all those teams are going to go their separate ways potentially. So we'll see what happens there. That's
kind of weird. And just finally, your impression of what's going on with college football these days. NIL. Coming out of the pandemic, I guess, was the one of the stimuluses for the NIL, the transfer portal, conference defections and additions, expanded playoffs. A lot of stuff's going on in college football these days. What do you think about that? And what's the next big thing that may happen in college football? What do you think?
I feel like we're gonna figure out whatever the conferences is gonna look like. We're gonna have that big blow up eventually, where everyone's gonna go to where they're supposed to be or where they want to be, and then we're gonna go from there and divvy it up. I think the new playoff system kind of crack the door even more for that to happen. I think we're going to either have one big conference or 2 big conferences or 4 big conferences, and that'll be kind of how we go from there. But I think that's probably the next thing. We'll see what happens with NIL. I think, there's some legislation stuff that's probably going to start happening at some point. We'll see what happens there.
You almost think there's got to be some kind of handle on that. But who knows? And how do you go about it? And Congress wants to get involved in it. And sometimes Congress getting involved in stuff is not the best thing to have happen. So I don't know. It's interesting times. For an old school guy, traditionalist like me, I sit around sometime and I'm saying, well, what's going on with college football? But still, it's the game on the field that's great. And so the game on the field is like it's always been. And it's great. Well, Jeremy O'Neal Johnson, working with Dawgs HQ on 3sports.com. He has to put up with Rusty Manziel a lot. We love Rusty, don't we? He's a good guy.
Rusty is a legend around this state. He just, everywhere he goes, it seems like he knows literally every person in the room. And I'm just sitting back a lot like, how do you know all of these people? Like, how do you remember all of these names? And, the guy never meets a stranger because he's such a good, down-to-earth guy that just, he just lights up a room when he's around. So it's definitely a good atmosphere to work in when, you get to wake up and go to work for him or work around him every day. So.
Well, you guys do a great job in covering the University of Georgia, and there's a lot to cover these days. It's a lot of fun, I know, for you to be able to do that. And I saw where you were down at, we're located in South Georgia. You were down in our neck of the woods here recently, right?
Yeah, where I hopped in the car and drove to Savannah yesterday and then drove back. I kind of regretted just coming back. I should have just stayed the night or something, but I was like, I want to be back home, sleep in my own bed. Went down there, saw a couple of young guys down there and got in my car and turned around and came back. So it was about 8 hours of driving yesterday, but that's part of the job. That's
part of the job.
Better than a lot of things I could be doing.
Sure. That's true. And, somebody asked me, in fact, yesterday they asked me, says, well, why does Georgia lose some of the in-state talent to out-of-state teams. And I said, well, look, you can't get them all. I mean, there's only so many spots, and Georgia has their targets. And, Georgia, sometimes they'll lose guys that they really want, especially in-state guys, to go other places. But that happens because sometimes these guys look at the roster and they think to themselves, if I go to Georgia, I may not play, for 2 or 3 years or whatever the case may be. You can't get them all, but Georgia, gets enough from the in-state and out-of-state talent. It really is amazing what's going on at the University of Georgia. Well, Jeremy, it's good to have you on our program today. Is there anything I need to ask you that I haven't asked you yet?
No, I mean, I think, we covered a lot of it. I definitely enjoyed talking Georgia football. I mean, it's, definitely I'm excited about the opportunity to go and, full time with Dawgs HQ. So that's been an exciting last couple of weeks for me. So I'm ready for this season.
All right, man. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll talk to you again soon. And go Dogs, right?
Yeah, go Dogs.